Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Billy Dees Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked out our program before, you can find the Billy Dees Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, on down the line. No matter how you found us, I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. My co-host today is Jack Casey. Jack, welcome to the program.
Hey, man, long time no see. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Jack is kind of a semi-regular, I guess. He's a co-host that comes on the program every once in a while. And he like he said, he hasn't been on in a while. And we're going to talk about a little mixed bag, I guess, of things today. We're going to talk about Mars. And I've talked about space in some of my previous episodes here. So this kind of leads in just a little bit. And this thing with Mars to me is fascinating. I want to talk about that a little bit. And we're also going to dip into the subject of cancel culture. And that is out of control. And actually, Bill Maher did an excellent routine about this on one of his, the night, I believe it was about a week or so ago. And he hit the nail right on the head about this cancel culture. It's, it started fairly innocuously and about being sensitive to people's feelings and all this. And now it's out of control. It's out of control. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Staying with current events, I did want to I know you didn't follow this, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because it has been thoroughly covered. But I have to say, this Meghan Markle interview, I'm not sure what it's like the Duchess of Sussex or something like that. And she went on the Oprah Winfrey interview with her husband, Harry. And unless you've been living under a rock for the last, 30 years, Harry is the son of the late Princess Diana. And I would have to say that Princess Diana and her two sons, largely from a publicity standpoint, really shot some new life into that monarchy. There's absolutely no question. It was becoming very drab and very boring. And Princess Diana really glamorized that again for another generation of people. And I do believe she was a good person. I was a fan of hers. I enjoyed most of the things that she got involved with. And of course, she had that infamous death, the terrible car crash. And the two boys were essentially, I would have to say, adopted by the British people and by the world as a whole, but certainly by the British people. And here again, I don't want to go down through a whole list of things, but she talks about how she was mistreated. She felt like she was never accepted. And there was the comment that she made to Oprah, and Oprah, got very, you could tell the reception of this remark was very strong. She made the remark that somebody asked Harry, I believe it was. Here again, it was kind of unclear who said it to whom. Something about speculating about what color the baby was going to be.
Oh, you know what? I think I did hear about this.
Yeah. And let me just say this. I don't doubt for one moment that is a dysfunctional family. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it for one moment. And I don't doubt that there was speculation about the baby only because let's take the racism aspect of this and set it aside for a moment. This is a family, and all the families that are anywhere near the monarchy. Lady Diana was actually, she had a title separate from the royal family. Her family had royalty in it as well. She was from the House of Spencer. Okay. So her bloodline was evaluated as well when she got married into the royal family. Everybody's bloodline gets evaluated because their whole legacy of power comes from bloodlines. All right. So that doesn't surprise me either. And I was listening to some British commentators about this, and her approval rating is extremely low in Britain, and Harry's has dropped as well. And I believe what you have to understand is, and I agree with the British commentators on this, is that when people from America come to Britain, they consider the royal family very much like we consider celebrities here in America. Celebrities are on talk shows, they're always giving their opinion, and they're on social media. The royal family is actually they're state servants, okay? And they're not supposed to be having an agenda or be social justice warriors or anything like that. Their job is to listen to the people. That's what they're there for. Okay? They're there to listen to the people, and they're there to represent to the world the state of the United Kingdom. The Queen is actually the head of state. A lot of people don't understand that. The government is Parliament, the Prime Minister.
The Queen's mostly symbolic.
It's symbolic in that case, although she does have some power. A lot of people don't realize that. In terms of being a head of state, which is a little bit different than here in the United States, where the president is the leader of the federal government. But she does have some power, and clearly they are public servants. They are there to give prestige to the United Kingdom, to listen to the British people, to represent the British people, and to do all these other things publicly. They are not there to have a personal agenda or to make themselves celebrities or make themselves, that's not what they're there for. That's why she wasn't accepted. So now they've run off. I don't know the details of this, but I believe Prince Harry got an inheritance from Diana, which was somewhere in the tens of millions. I don't know what it was. They got this enormous, somewhere north of $100 million from Netflix to do a documentary about them. Oprah, either she or her production company paid them, I don't know, something like $7 million to do this interview. And they're on national TV complaining about how badly the world has treated them.
Anytime Meghan Markle wants to switch lives with me, she can totally do so. I will take every single one of her problems and just make them my own and live with it for the rest of my life. It'll be okay, Meghan. Yeah. You can live in my crappy apartment in Ravenna, Ohio, and sit around eating Stoasters every night and be jobless. I'll just take your millions. It's cool.
Yeah.
We'll figure out something to do with it.
Yeah. And you have to know that going in. Okay. I mean, it's not like, and she claims that she wasn't prepared for it. And here again, a lot of these British news outlets have showed, in their archives, story after story of how she was being educated, how she had a personal assistant to help her transition, to make her understand what the role was. I don't know that I don't know what her motives are. And I wish Prince Harry well, because I'll tell you what, something goes wrong with that marriage, boy, he's out there blowing in the wind, because he ain't coming back. He ain't coming back.
One thing I will never understand is why people in America care so much about the British royal family. Didn't we fight like 2 wars to get away from them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, what has a British royal ever done for you?
Exactly.
They didn't sign your stimulus check, did they?
No, they did not. And here again, I have a certain amount of respect for Prince Harry. He served very honorably in Afghanistan. He was in some dangerous areas. And I got to tell you, a number of years ago, he came to the United States. I forget what the occasion was, but he was dressed up in a military uniform of some kind. And he did this thing, I believe it was at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, one of those kind of places. And he spun around on his heels and saluted that grave. And man, I'm telling you, it gave you chills. He looked like he belonged there a lot more than any of the presidents ever did during my lifetime. Okay. So I admire him for that. But and the other thing that really bugged me about this interview is him quoting family members publicly. I mean, that would be like you talking to your brother or sister, your mom or dad, and then going on the Oprah show and throwing them under the bus.
Right.
I mean, you don't know what the context of what some of these conversations were. And that's something that I have a problem with our presidents. A lot of times they'll confide in an advisor and say, "What are my options here?" And sometime later, like a year or two later, after the whole situation has blown over, one of these advisors writes this book and paints this picture. Well, this is what the president was considering, and make it sound like this was his first choice of something to do. And it was just trying to understand what his options were. And I just I don't dig that. I don't like people's confidence being betrayed. Um, Especially your own family. They might have had a heart to heart with him about something that was very genuine in terms of their concern about this marriage. It could have been anything. And for him to just go on there and say that his family, treated him so badly, and here again, I don't doubt that that family is dysfunctional. I mean, what would ever possess Prince Charles to have an affair when you're married to Princess Diana, which was one of the most beautiful women in the world? But you don't know. You just don't know what's in someone's heart. And so anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but that was such an enormous story. And all I can tell you, if you're listening to this and you have a very strong opinion about this and it's really eating at you and you're really mad about what I said, you're concerned about the wrong things about what's going on in our society today.
Yeah, you have some misplaced priorities in life there if you're
Yeah.
angry about that level-headed opinion right there. Like,
Yeah, I mean, because man, somebody on TikTok made the remark: if you know all about this story and you don't know who your own senators are, you're concerned about the wrong things. And boy, is that true.
people are genuinely concerned about the wrong things, though. I mean, you
Oh
ever
yeah,
notice that? It's like,
yeah,
oh, well, Kim Kardashian and Kanye are getting a divorce. Like, meanwhile, your house is burning down around you. And
yes. Well, I understand the kind of the interest in the royal family. It is designed to be something that entertains and enthralls the British people. That's what it's there for.
I just don't
Uh,
get the American obsession with it.
the only
You
thing
know?
the only thing that I can say is that there isn't one of the reasons. You know a little bit about history. Tell me if you agree with this. I think one of the reasons that we succeeded in our revolution and breaking away from the British government is, for the most part, we didn't have to turn our society upside down. We were very much like them. Yeah, Congress is very parliamentary. The governor's system is set up very much from nobility. The idea that you pardon somebody, that the governor has pardoned, that's all descendant of royalty. That's all descendant of their system over there. And even the election system, the way they select a prime minister and so on and so forth. Here again, it's very similar to us. We didn't turn our society upside down when we kick in the doors in the Middle East and say we're going to give you democracy. Okay, it's completely different to their culture. They enjoy having the leaders that they do. Their religion is intertwined with their government. A lot of times, how they feel about certain leaders is intertwined with their government. So that's why it doesn't always work. But with us, all we basically wanted was somebody different to pay taxes to. We didn't want our culture turned upside down. And if you look at our history, we love British literature, whether it be Shakespeare, what have you. We love British actors. We love British rock stars. I could go down the whole list. And the closest thing that we had to royalty was probably the Kennedy administration, what they referred to as Camelot.
Right.
And we really have not had that. Our leaders come and go every 4 years. And a lot of critics of our system around the world do say that sometimes 4 years isn't enough time for a leader to be truly successful or truly fail. And there may be some truth to that. I don't know, but we don't get too attached to our leaders. They come and go pretty quickly.
I've always liked the idea of having our president serve 6-year single terms.
Yeah, that would not be a bad idea.
There's enough time to kind of get agendas pushed through, and there's no re-election worries. So you don't have,
Yes,
at least, increasingly in modern times, you get elected as president and then you keep campaigning throughout your first term. So therefore you can't do anything maybe unpopular, that's for the greater good, because it might hurt you getting reelected and getting your true agenda in for the second term.
Yeah. So I agree with that, and I think some of our critics have a point with that. You got to keep in mind that there are people that live in Britain who have their father, grandfather served under, uh, the Queen's father when he was king during World War II, and they have this generational thing where they grew up with this family and they have this connection. And we don't have that with our presidents. Here again, they come and go every 4 years. So, or they might serve 2 terms, but the point is that they're up for re-election every 4 years. We have this very quick cycle. We either like them or we don't, in a very quick turnaround time.
Yeah, usually
So,
about 12 hours or so.
yeah. So anyway, um, speaking of our government, I did a commentary recently about the importance of NASA, the importance of space exploration. So I'm not going to necessarily cover all those points again. However, I do really like Mars, the idea of going to Mars. And I know that you have been following this, Jack. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that have really captured your imagination or your interest in what's been going on with Mars here recently?
Oh yeah, I was fortunate enough to be around to watch the landing, which was cool. Which is something that you don't see, every day.
Yeah.
I've also been just today actually. I was looking at some of the new pictures from the surface, and it's such a desolate, kind of eerie looking, uh, landscape that I guess wouldn't be completely alien in some parts of Earth, with some of the deserts that we have. Um, but it struck out to me as how isolated it truly is. Seeing these high resolution pictures, up
Yeah.
close. And it is truly amazing to me too that in modern times like this, the thing lands and we can see what the rover's seeing 8 minutes later. Whereas, back when I was a kid, and even like maybe 15 years ago, I mean, you had to
Yeah.
wait for the science magazines to publish these pictures, and
Yeah.
everybody was really excited about it. And I know I always was as a kid. Anytime they would show a new picture of Jupiter, I could sit and look at that for hours. And um, as far as going to Mars, though, I think we should start with the moon first in
Yeah.
terms of building a permanent base, because you have a lot of you got like Elon Musk wanting to go directly out to Mars and skip the moon. And not only would having a moon base be better because it would be closer to Earth, so should there be a disaster or something along those lines, we'd be able to respond to it before everybody dies.
Yeah.
And also, other physicists say that it would be a good launching off point for spacecraft going to Mars or going to asteroids or going to Venus,
Sure.
other places, because you don't have to push the rocket as much at zero gravity, along with the helium-3 on the moon being able to be used for rocket fuel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So also, I think a lot of people too, when they have this dream about having the colony on Mars and everything, they don't realize just how incredibly isolated it really is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, you'd have to have teams of scientists who might never come back, first of all, and second of all, would have to deal with the same people for years and years, if not,
Oh,
by
God.
themselves most of the time. And speaking as a fairly antisocial person, I can go for days and like weeks without talking to anybody. It does not bother me at all. But I could not handle months and years of stuff like that. And also, you got to figure, what if 2 scientists get into a fight over something? I mean, there was
Yeah.
that guy down in Antarctica, I think the Russian guy who stabbed the other guy because he ruined Harry Potter.
Oh my
I
God.
mean,
Yeah. I hate when you get
a
to that
couple years
point.
ago.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of things that people don't take into account. And also, it's not just a desert. I mean, you have radiation coming in because there's no atmosphere to block it. There's no tectonic activity to keep a magnetosphere that would block a lot of the radiation.
Mm-hmm.
Parts of Mars are just extremely cold. I mean, you could probably sort out water, but things like if you had a hydroponic garden or something and it failed, I mean, you're going to starve to death because we're not going to get anything else out to you for about 9 months. So it is a fascinating idea, though. And recently I've been reading stuff about possibly sending probes and sending even like colonies out to Venus up in the
Yeah.
clouds, because apparently we could float colonies out there fairly easily, and up in Venus's upper atmosphere,
Really?
it's not as cold or hot. So it would be cool to look into if you ever have a minute to just kind of look up, colonizing Venus.
Yeah, I've
Apparently
always.
there's a lot of stuff for fuel and stuff out there too. That's like, already in the atmosphere. I was reading about it the other day.
Yeah, I always understood Venus to be pretty hostile. In terms of it's extremely hot, rains acid in certain areas. So I'd like to investigate what the philosophy is about having these floating ones. That's kind of interesting. Now getting back to the moon, helium-3 is something that a lot of people may not be familiar with. Essentially, what helium-3 has I'm going to say the theoretical advantage when we use nuclear fission here in a nuclear power plant. Let's say that's an artificial type of a nuclear reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Fusion, which is what happens in the sun, is a more natural type of nuclear reaction, and you have less problems with it. It's more stable. There's, you don't have the issues with nuclear radioactive waste and all of these other things. The problem is achieving that with elements available here on Earth is very difficult. Now, helium-3 is available here in the world, but it's very hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about the moon is that without an atmosphere or anything, weather and all these other things, helium-3, which has radiated from the sun as dust, has collected on the moon. And it's, as far as we can tell, with what we know now, it's very plentiful up there. So I've even heard speculation about it having a value here on Earth because, let's say, one wheelbarrow. I heard it put this way: if we could perfect nuclear fusion, which, to my knowledge, has not been done yet on a big scale. Okay. They've done it on the atomic level, but they haven't produced a wide reaction that you could somehow utilize for energy.
Well, part of the reason it's kind of difficult to do is because right now their current technology, it takes more power to produce the reaction than it does that you get out of it.
Right.
So
if they could perfect it, however, theoretically speaking, if you could send a space shuttle to the moon and bring back a giant payload of gold, it would not be worth it. But just one wheelbarrow full of helium-3 would probably make it worth it, because that one wheelbarrow full of helium-3, if we could perfect nuclear fusion to be controllable and be very efficient, that I don't know how much you could say would power a city, let's say, for who knows how long. So it's theoretically it's very valuable, and I've heard speculation that one of the reasons why Russia and China are interested in the moon is because of helium-3. So I hear again, how much of that is smoke and mirrors, and how much of that is something that may really turn into something viable. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't know what a physicist's opinion would be, but just to let the audience know, that's what you were referring to with helium-3.
Mm-hmm.
So
another thing too is that helium is now an increasingly finite resource on Earth as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize how many applications it has and how many things wouldn't work anymore if we didn't have it. I'm talking like MRI machines, among other like medical uses, stuff like that. So I see people blowing up balloons all the time with it. I'm like, that's not the best use for it right there, but it does make your voice sound funny though if you suck it in. So that's always infinitely.
Yeah, I've never had the guts to do that. I'm prone to headaches, and that's not something that I've been really wanting to do. The perseverance.
It's never given me a headache.
Okay, I'm not going to try it.
You do sound really funny though.
Oh,
I think you would sound hilarious on that. There's actually a guy. He goes by Cody's Lab on YouTube, and helium is one of the what do you call it? The noble gases.
Yeah,
well, yeah. He did an experiment where he inhaled each one of the noble gases to see what it would do to his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send you the video after because it's pretty funny. But it was interesting because, the heavier gases made his voice go a lot deeper. Whereas, as he got lighter and lighter, his voice, went higher and higher.
Yeah.
And apparently it's not toxic if you only do it a little bit too. So, I mean, the guy handles mercury with his bare hands too, so who knows?
Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah.
For those that may not know, mercury is very much a carcinogen.
Mhm.
Um, have you watched any of the pictures, or they had some sounds that were recorded by the Perseverance rover? Did you check any of that out?
No, I haven't checked any of that. I wasn't aware of it. I'll have to check it out
Yeah.
after we get off of here.
Yeah, they're kind of spooky sounds, but it's interesting. As far as I know, it was the first time that sound per se
Right.
was actually recorded from another planet. So, with the exception of the ones that pass by in the form of a satellite, that's not quite the same thing as being on the surface and actually
No.
recording wind sounds and stuff. So, yeah, they have a helicopter that they're going to dispatch as well. A little, I guess, drone type of helicopter that they're going to fire up here in a couple weeks.
I wonder how
So,
well that's going to work with that thin atmosphere too, because the air is
yeah,
not dense on Mars.
yeah. Well, this thing isn't. It looks. I can't really tell how big it is. It looks very similar to something that you might, buy in a blue box store to fly around your living room. It's relatively small, so
Right.
I'm guessing it doesn't have a lot of weight. But I mean, I guess there are winds up there, so there's enough atmosphere for there to be wind and blow sand around and stuff. And so I don't know.
It'll
Um,
be interesting to see how that works.
yeah, it's an interesting time, and like you said, Elon Musk and some other people are talking about going up there, and I don't doubt anything Elon Musk tries to do because he seems to he seems to come through on it. But that's pretty interesting.
Well, the man
Uh,
sent a car to space, so I mean,
Send a car to space. Yeah, yeah. So
imagine the aliens finding that and like no other thing that had to do with our civilization. It's like
yeah,
what?
that's what people did. They drove around in cars. That's pretty much all we've done the last 100 years.
Just maybe the car was actually the species, and the guy inside was a parasite. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know. A lot of times when I talk about space, is sometimes people get upset because they don't understand why we're spending money on it, and they have a tendency to want to shut you down. And that's my segue into cancel culture. I was listening into Bill Maher the other day, and Bill Maher is one of those guys that I could eat. I don't agree with him a lot of the times, but there are other times when he hits the nail right on the head.
Yeah, I
And
hate Bill Maher's personality a lot, but he is right on stuff every now and then.
oh yeah, he's incredibly right. And
The only major problem I have with him is that he's an anti-vaxxer.
I'm not aware of that, but yeah, I would agree with that. That's problematic. The thing that about him is, yes, he is a comedian, and I guess I'm one of the few I can laugh at something I don't agree with. A lot of people
Right.
can't.
I'm the same
Uh,
way. If it's
yeah,
funny, it's funny. I don't
it's
care where
yeah,
it comes from.
yeah, absolutely. And but he does make some sociological points, and he was pointing out that whatever it was in Dr. Seuss that was offensive to Chinese people or whatever was the issue that they had to pull the Dr. Seuss books. He said, "How many Chinese people do you think were offended by that?" And he said he used foul language. He was not an effing one of the how many billions that are over there gave a damn.
Well, it's like
And
back in the day when Mexico tried to cancel Speedy Gonzales, and he was a very popular character down in
yeah,
Mexico. And if
yeah,
you really break it down, I mean, he doesn't really show a negative stereotype because I mean he always
yeah,
outsmarts Sylvester the cat, and and in one of the later series, like he has his own business, like a pizza shop and everything. He's an upstanding
yeah,
citizen. Just people take it too
yeah,
far. It's like one person goes, "Oh, well, I don't like that," and then they blast it on Twitter, and then
yeah,
the Dr. Seuss thing was interesting to watch go down because first of all, the people mad about it, I don't think many of them actually read. Um, and they were saying, well, it's the leftists and it's the terrible, the government trying to censor us. And no, it was the Dr. Seuss Foundation who were getting, what do you call it? Putting out a print books that just don't sell anymore. In fact,
okay,
I was a big Dr. Seuss reader when I was a kid, and the only one that I recognized was the Mulberry Street one. It happened on Mulberry Street,
okay,
which I guess is the one with the Asian caricature that
okay,
offended people or something. But the thing was, these books just didn't sell.
Okay.
And the other four I'd never heard of. The one that was If I Ran a Zoo, I think was what it was called. That one had some questionable artwork in it. Kind of like the Sambo and
Yeah.
minstrel show type artwork.
Oh, okay.
There was some of that in there. I mean, while I don't find it really that offensive because it takes a lot for me to care about something like that. I mean, I could see why other people would be bothered by it.
Yeah.
But the truth is, nobody canceled Dr. Seuss except for his own foundation. It's not like you're never gonna, be able to buy the Cat in the Hat or the places you'll go or any of that ever again. It's
Interesting.
just
Okay.
they're paring it down a little bit, and of course, people ran with it. They were like, "Oh," and you saw that some of these Republican senators too are like autographing the books that weren't even canceled
Yeah.
and selling their idiot supporters. The whole thing is just. It was the same time as that Mr. Potato Head thing.
Yeah. And he mentioned that what he got into was how the Chinese people have come together. They've created a middle class. They have skilled workers. That's why they do so well with industry and manufacturing.
Mhm.
And they promote their brightest and their best. They don't go by lottery systems to see who gets promoted, and they promote their most bright and valued people in terms of education and stuff.
Right.
He talked about the high speed trains, which totally they clean our clocks, and they go down. He goes down this whole road. And he said, our preoccupation is the sexuality of a plastic potato.
Yeah.
That's
And the
what
thing
we're
was, it wasn't
concerned
even a
about.
sexuality thing. It was they rebranded it to just call it Potato Head. You can still buy a Mr. or a Mrs. Potato Head. I just find
Okay.
it really ironic that all these people who are like frothing at the mouth about this are frothing at the mouth about children's toys and books.
Yeah.
And not like real things that are going on that deserve our attention more than I can't buy this book with semi-racist drawings in it anymore, and that outrages me.
Yeah.
I don't, because at first I was like, well, that's stupid, and then I looked more into it and it was like, no, it's just rebranding, and it's another
Yeah.
company choosing not to publish something that's not making them money. That's called capitalism, which is what you people are always saying is the best system in the world. Well, there's your capitalism at
Yeah.
work right there. They found
Yeah.
a wider audience and they're trying to make more money, you
Yeah.
know? But the canceling thing, man, it's just, again, you're seeing people still like make a tweet like 10 years ago that was a joke that wasn't funny,
Oh,
or
yeah.
and they
Yeah.
dig this stuff up, and it's like, well, people grow and change. I mean, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, which is
Oh, yeah.
fortunate. You'd probably never talk to me. um, I don't understand it. And I would like to plug a book. It's one of my
Sure.
favorite books of his. It's by John Ronson. It's a few years old now. I think it came out in 2015 or 2016. It's called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," and he goes and he talks to people who have been shamed out of getting their or being able to have a career, have a job, or any of that. One example being this lady who made what was kind of an innocuous tweet for the time before everybody lost their minds with PC stuff,
Yeah.
where she said, "Hey, I'm touching down in Africa on my plane. I hope I don't get AIDS." That was the only thing she said. Within 24 hours, while she was flying, she lost her job. She was greeted with a mob of people who were angry at her at the airport,
Yeah.
all over what was a bad joke, but it was just a joke. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that I don't think she was going to take, or she was seriously believing that she was going to get AIDS just from being in Africa.
Yeah.
But it is a really good book. If anybody out there is into nonfiction and would like a kind of an in-depth look at early cancel culture,
Yeah.
John
I
Ronson,
remember that
You've Been
incident.
Publicly
Yeah.
Shamed. So
Yeah. And here again, getting back to Bill Maher, I've heard him say a number of times now that comedians won't even play college campuses anymore
no,
because they've totally drank the Kool-Aid. You can't say anything that has a positive spin on capitalism or self-reliance or anything like that without, oh yeah, but you don't know about this. And I feel that what's interesting to me is you talk about George Orwell and Big Brother and all this. And the fear was always that the government was going to cancel people, was going to halt people's opinions, was going to stop people from expressing new ideas. That was always the fear. And what I feel has happened is that is happening now, but it's being done self-inflicted. It
Well, it's
isn't
more
the
like a
government
brand
that's
new
doing it.
world.
Yeah, it's the people have decided by mob rule who can speak and who can't. What opinions are tolerable and which ones are not. And there's just a lot wrong with that. When you can't even make a joke as a comedian
Oh, even
without
comedians nowadays, when you see them on like YouTube shows and podcasts and stuff like that, they don't really make jokes anymore.
no,
It's constant
no,
having to. That's why I like Bill Burr and
yeah,
Chrissy Mayer, and then some other alternative people who run podcasts. The ones who aren't afraid to joke about stuff anymore because
yeah,
it's just so bland and boring. It's like instead of telling jokes, you're just preaching at us. That's not comedy.
no,
Comedy's supposed to test boundaries. It's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to be offensive to piss you off on purpose.
exactly.
And you don't see that anymore. It's sad.
Yeah,
Like I
I,
kind of want to get him to stand up when I was younger, and some of the jokes I would make, oh man, I would never get anywhere. I mean,
yeah.
I'd be
Well,
throwing out everything.
two people that I feel are the gold standard for comedy, and actually they're beyond comedians. They're to me they move the needle on you, whether it be social issues or what have you. They were so deep with their material that they were beyond what a comedian was, and those two would be Richard Pryor, and the other one would be George Carlin.
I'd like to add Bill Hicks to that list.
Okay, very fair enough. I don't know how well those guys could do what they did in today's.
Carlin, some of his jokes from like back in the 70s and 80s and early
Yeah,
90s, never.
yeah,
He has an entire routine talking about how like censoring the N-word is a stupid pretty much, and talking about how we all kind of stereotype each other and we all throw jokes at each other. You get a bunch of guys in a room, they're going to make fun of each other's nationality or whatever, and
yeah,
every job I've ever had, we all did that. No one
yeah.
cried and crapped their pants. But oh yeah, some of the stuff from even Carlin's like early career you would never see today.
Oh,
Like,
Richard Pryor, the same thing. He covered a lot of the same ground. And some of it was shocking, and some of it did make white people feel uncomfortable, and some of it made even black people feel uncomfortable. But that was the
good.
whole point of it.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of it, and it was to move the needle on how you judge things, on how you evaluate things, and that as an art form has been pretty much stifled.
Can you imagine Richard Pryor's this is my favorite of his, is the one where he talks about how he set himself on fire while he was
Yeah.
freebasing coke.
Yeah.
That would not fly today. People would be
It was
call the
shocking at the time.
DEA.
Yeah, it was shocking at the time. A lot of people had a problem with it at the time, but today, oh my God, no.
Or like look
No.
at Eddie Murphy's 80s, early 90s acts. I mean, those are straight up uncomfortable to watch anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause,
sure.
every other word he's using, the F slur, and which is too much. I mean, if you want to pepper it in for shock effect, use it maybe once or twice. But like some of his specials, it's like every other word. I mean,
Yeah, and that part of it I didn't like. See, that's why I'm not as big on Eddie as I am the other guys, because those guys had, in moderation, they used those words and those terms to make a point or to raise your consciousness to a different level regarding a certain point.
right. I
Eddie,
just thought it was worth pointing out that he
yeah.
was another very wildly popular comedian.
Oh,
back in the
sure.
day.
Sure. And with him, it was every other word, this and that, and all that toilet humor. I just didn't. It wasn't. He wasn't necessarily at the top of my list, but I get your point. But that was overdone, even for its time, in my opinion.
Right.
And that's only as entertainment. Here again, it wouldn't be that I'd want to go out and stop his shows from playing. That's my point. If you don't like it, don't watch it.
Well,
Yeah, don't watch it.
That was the point I was going to make. It's like, dude, if you don't like somebody's tweet or somebody's opinion, block them.
Yeah.
You don't have to read everything, they do and sit and stew in hatred over someone disagreeing with you on something.
Yeah.
I mean, you see these people who like that Star Wars actress who made a relatively, what I would call innocuous. I always hate it when people compare stuff to the Holocaust or Hitler, because it's always way overblown. Like, Trump said this, he's Hitler. Or the word pedophile, which is now, anytime I see someone getting called a pedophile, I immediately take whoever's calling them not seriously anymore.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Or it's like back in the day too. Like George Carlin said it once. He said, there's two switches on your TV. One turns the TV off, and the other one changes the channel.
There you go. Yep, and he was right. Before we go, our episodes usually run anywhere between a half hour and 45 minutes. We're coming up on the 40-minute mark. something political, and I know you generally lean to the left. And when you suggested this as a topic, I was curious as to what you were going to say about it, and that is the $15 minimum wage
Should be higher.
should be higher.
Yep.
And you think it should be across the board?
Yes.
Minimum wage. Okay.
It might hurt businesses for a little bit. Well, first of all, if we tied minimum wage to inflation since the 70s, it would be closer to $25 to $27 an hour right now.
Okay.
And people right now, I mean, especially with the pandemic, but even before, March last year, which actually we're at like the 1-year anniversary of that, interestingly enough, we're struggling. I mean, housing prices going up, everything's gone up, wages stayed the same. And you have a lot of people who, granted, a lot of them do overspend and don't live within their means.
Yeah.
But that's every society ever. You have that group that does, the subset of people who does that.
Correct.
But
sure.
I find it disgusting that you can have a full-time job. And I was this up to about a month ago, but not be able to afford your own home. Not if one of you, somebody in your family gets sick, there goes all of your money. Like, you're basically bankrupt, which is 80% of medical bankruptcies. And I feel like if you're a business owner and you can't afford to pay your at least full-time employees enough to have, the bare minimum of, food, shelter, medical care, other things that are needed or necessary for life, then you're not doing a great job as a businessman. And if your profits are relying on the U.S. government and food stamps and other social entitlements for you to, still walk away with record profits for the past 10, 15 years, if not longer, then you're no longer a business, you're a parasite.
Yeah.
And people screaming over the $15 minimum wage, and especially that one argument that you see all the time, like, well, I already make $15 an hour, so why are you going to have burger flippers or, other people? What you're really saying is you just hate poor people. That's kind of my take on it.
The only thing I would add, and I'm going to swing conservative on this, I think as a general rule, I am okay with the concept of a minimum wage being around $15 an hour, but it has to have some caveats. And let me explain what that means. When you have a company that has billions of dollars in profits, as you talk about, and you have employees who are working these enormously difficult physical jobs, sorting packages or whatever, and they're being pushed all the time to go faster, faster, faster. And they're barely able to eke out a living. There's something wrong with that picture. There's something.
I have a bunch of workers waking up every day to go get pushed like they're robots and just going, what's the point? Like, why do I do this to myself every day? And I can't even keep a house or a decent car. I can't feed myself good food. I have to eat garbage from McDonald's.
Yes. But I can also tell you on the other side of the coin. Okay. No, I've been around business owners my whole life, and you drive up and down the road and you'll see these little mom and pop, let's say a flower shop. And there might be some semi-retired people there who sit there and answer the phone or do other things. They're there not only to pick up some extra money, but to get out of the house, to socialize, and so on and so forth. A lot of retired folks work for places like this, making deliveries, delivering flowers to funeral homes. And if you tell those folks, you gotta pay them $15 an hour, those jobs won't exist. They just simply will not exist. And those people are going to lose something that's very enjoyable. It gets them out of the house. It gets them making some money. A lot of times high school kids work in these kind of places for extra money. And all that's going to get taken away because those people are the ones who can't afford it. Okay, they're not billion-dollar corporations. I mean, these are people, and I've known them. They sweat the night before. They almost can't sleep the night before they hire somebody because they hope it's going to be worth the money that and to put them in a position where, they're going to have to pay a given amount is going to make that nightmare for them. Say no. In the morning, they're going to wake up. I'm going to say, no, I can get by without them.
Well, I mean, not always necessarily, though, because if you look at other countries where they have pegged wages to inflation and done it successfully, as we haven't, which, I mean, if we do raise wages like that, it's going to hurt for a little bit for some business owners. But the thing that's shown is that there's more productivity, and people who are happier tend to stick around at jobs that, pay them the necessary amount, maybe more.
Sure.
And their economies also go up because now people have more money to spend on things. They're not spending all their money on medical debt. They're not spending all of their money on, enormously high rents. They can go out and go to concerts, so they can, do stuff with their money, which in turn creates more demand for having more workers. It's just, we have this thing in this country where we don't look ahead past like the next quarter for the shareholders. What could possibly benefit us. And the thing is too, like, we're not making it $15 an hour tomorrow. A lot of these plans that have been proposed are over a number of years, say 5 or 10 years. And in a lot of cases, like restaurants and, fast food restaurants, I read somewhere that if we were to have $15 minimum wage tomorrow, and you were to control for, increased labor costs and, and then look at volume, the average cost of a fast food meal wouldn't go up more than like 80 or 90 cents. People aren't going to stop buying Big Macs because they're 90 more cents.
Yeah.
In fact, the Papa John's founder got in trouble back in the day because he refused to give his, at least the restaurants he owned, his employees, health benefits, because it would have raised the price of a pizza by 13 cents.
Yeah.
It's 13 cents. Like, people aren't going to care about that. It's just, it's straight up greed at this point, if you ask me. And the argument too about like, old people not being able to make the extra money or any of that. Well, with people making more money, you have the tax increases too, like tax base increases. So therefore, that's more money that can be put into, say, Medicare or Social Security payouts, stuff like that. So in the end, if you look at the long term, doing such a thing makes a lot of economic sense, because if you lift up the bottom, then everybody benefits. Trickle up rather than trickle down. I mean, I'm not an economist, but from what I've studied, and I did do a fair amount of study or research into it when I was in school, it really is beneficial. It's just these people don't want to give up, their second yacht or their second house, things like that.
Yeah, here again, you're mentioning the people that I would say within certain guidelines. Your company has X amount of employees that are full time. Your company has, so many millions, so many billions of dollars in profits. You should be required to have employees that are working full time and not playing any games like giving them 37 hours, just enough short that they don't get benefits.
Right.
You should have full time benefits, and because of the fact that these corporations with billions of dollars worth of profits aren't paying these employees healthcare benefits and other things, then that falls right back onto the public sector. That's why there's so many people that don't have health insurance, and why it falls under the burden of the taxpayer to lift those people up.
Yeah, I don't have health insurance. Every day is a gamble for me. I mean,
and that's,
too, I just don't understand why, everybody demonizes single payer healthcare and stuff like that, because then businesses wouldn't have to pay for it anymore.
I'm totally on board with that, but until we get there,
right.
And single payer healthcare, that's a whole podcast right there. That we'll touch that the parts of that at another time. But
yeah, I can fight about that all day.
I'm all for getting insurance out of the responsibility of the employer. Okay. Now, with that being said, until we get there, you got to keep in mind that a lot of these employees who are working for these billion-dollar corporations are still dependent on some other source for their health care. And that's where I say, by all means, those people should be properly paid. Now, well, here again, getting back to the mom and pop shops, who can't afford to have a full-time employee. They only need somebody, let's say, on Friday and Saturday night to deliver whatever it is that they're providing, whether it be flowers or food or whatever. And there's somebody who's willing to do it for some extra money and to get out of the house. A lot of times with these, people who are semi-retired, they're supplementing their income from Social Security. Those are the people who are going to get hit by this. Right. And especially in the wake of a pandemic, when a lot of these small mom and pop shops have been brutalized to begin with economically, to now force them to pay what little help they can still afford more money. I just don't know that that's the best avenue to go down. There should be guidelines for the size of the company, the classification of the company, whether it's a nonprofit or not, on down the line, in terms of, if you need a calculator to understand the profits that a company is making, they probably should be paying minimum wage, a higher minimum wage. But anyway, We covered a lot of ground on this episode today. So I hope you were entertained by it. For those of the people that are listening, Jack, any final parting words to the audience? It's always great to have you here. You always bring a perspective that's different, and obviously it's a good opinion and it's worth talking about.
Well, if you have any Jackson idiot comments, please forward them to me. I find them amusing every time I see them.
Okay,
If I ever do see them. But I don't know. I just the thing is too. I want to bring up one last thing really quickly.
absolutely, go right ahead.
That's they're talking about canceling student loans. A lot of people in my age group are going to hate this opinion out of me, and that's fine. I'm 35 years old. And I really don't think that we need to be blowing tons of money that we have to repay over the next few generations on canceling out student loans. I think, if anything, we should be taking the money and canceling out medical debt. Because here's the difference. You signed up to go to school and to take out that money. It wasn't, you don't sign up to get cancer or to get diabetes or to get any other life debilitating disease, which then puts you bankrupt. There should be more of a priority toward paying off just these massive medical debts. That's 80 to 85% of people who go through bankruptcy are because of medical related, debt that they just can't pay.
Right.
And it's just wrong to me that you can lose a house over having the audacity to get cancer or to, break an arm or, to have a difficult birth. They wonder why people our age and younger aren't having children. Well, I mean, look at the cost of having a baby in the hospital.
Yeah.
I was reading a thing. There was a consensus on this one board where people were saying, I mean, just for the birth alone, it was like $8,000. I mean, how many people my age and younger have $8,000 sitting around that aren't already drowning in debts in the first place?
Yeah.
So if you want to solve this problem of, population declining and everything, I mean, that would be one of the first things you could go for. But the student loan thing, absolutely not. I don't.
Yeah.
I could see maybe assistance or making it easier to say lower interest rates or making it easier to take hardship into account and be able to, delay payments. But in terms of canceling it, no, that money needs to go elsewhere.
I would agree with that. And I've done a lot of people who have talked about this, who worked their way through college. I mean, they worked their way through college, and a lot of their friends who took out these student loans pretty much partied all through college. Still managed to graduate nonetheless, but partied most of the time.
Well, and that's the mentality of it's not actually my money. And you didn't earn it, so therefore you're just gonna, piss it away on beer, and you don't really care if you're gonna graduate.
Yeah, and
one
a
thing
lot
I did see that I agreed with though was people who don't finish school, maybe forgiving their student loans, because I mean you got a dude who failed out of school who's not going to find a decent job, 90% chance. And now you've got like what's essentially an extra mortgage payment, tacked onto you. You're not going to be able to afford a house or food or a family or any of that. But,
and I empathize with my friends who worked their way through college. Said, well, am I going to get paid? I worked my way and I paid it as I went. And I don't get anything, and so, I mean, there's a lot of different sides to this, but I would agree with you on that. I think healthcare's got to be a priority over reimbursing education.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was an essential worker through, taking that argument further. I was an essential worker throughout the entire pandemic pretty much, and I got screwed. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, sometimes life just doesn't treat you right. That's
an understatement. That is
a lot
an
of people
understatement.
are just feel like, they're entitled to something when other people get things. And I mean, if you're doing fine already, then why do you worry about it?
Exactly.
I don't get that mentality.
Yeah.
But that was something I wanted to bring up real briefly, because that was part of the debate over the stimulus package and everything. And I don't know. It's an unpopular opinion. People aren't going to agree with me on that, especially if they have student loans in the first place.
Yeah, sure.
It's understandable. But it's just, I don't know, misplaced priorities, as you said earlier. People need to. I think people need to sit back and take a wider perspective on things before losing their minds on Twitter or where else.
Yeah,
I guess I'll
totally agree with you. Jack, as always, it's always great to have you on, and we'll have Jack on again. He and I doing these discussions is something we do periodically here. If you would like to tweet us, you can tweet the Billy Dees Podcast at Billy Dees on Twitter. And Jack, you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, Jack KC8542. That's my @ thing.
Okay.
It's at Jack KC8540. I avoid social media lately. I don't know.
Okay, fair
I don't really
enough.
post
Fair
much
enough.
on there. I mostly just have a Twitter just to follow other podcasts and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I will try and start posting more. I've been sitting around my house for the past month, like not really doing much, so I don't really have much to post.
Gotcha.
So,
You can find the Billy Dees Podcast just about on all the social media. We're more active on some than others. Twitter's kind of like my social media home at Billy Dees. And by all means, send us a tweet. Just have to be nice. You don't have to agree. Just, kind of be respectful and be cool. We'd be glad to hear your opinion. You can also make a comment in our comment section on the Billy Dees Facebook page.
you can be mean to me all you want. It's all good.
Yeah, Jack doesn't care. And you can find the Billy Dees Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. So tell your friends about it. Tell them to listen in. And here again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all those tune in. We're there. So do give us a listen. Jack, thank you very much for coming on the program again, and we'll have you on again sometime soon.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, man. I missed it. I got plenty of free time now, too. So,
All right. Awesome. I sure will. Billy Dees, and until next week, have yourself a great time and stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Well, hello everyone. I am Billy Dees from the self-titled Billy Dees Podcast. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and many more of the best podcast networks. Join me for my commentary and interviews. Follow me on Twitter, real easy to find, at Billy Dees. I am Billy Dees. I'd love to have you listen in.